This is the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Matt. In this podcast, we're going to discuss growing companies, automation and manufacturing,
and how we're building the lives and businesses we want to see in the world.
Let's try and keep this one on point so you can get back to it, because you just got married yesterday, right?
Yeah, just yesterday.
I think that's probably a great way to roll into feelings of the week.
Yeah. Personally, obviously super excited. It's been a long time coming. Me and Priscilla have been, in essence, married for what feels like years now.
Okay. How long did the two of you date prior?
We've been together for 3.5 years.
Yeah, it's a good amount of time.
Yeah. But we moved in 2 months in, which
Holy
everyone...
crap.
Yeah.
That was quick.
It was quick. So I think we got engaged like 13 months ago. So,
Okay.
Big, exciting personal news, and got the destination wedding in Hawaii, which means I'm out for a week. So,
All right.
pretty blissful personally. I think, business-wise, I'm actually a little stressed.
Why is that?
Just economic uncertainty. Obviously tariffs and protectionism, I'm not a huge fan of that approach, but it's good for our business in terms of automating within America. But the part where I'm uncertain is how our customers' will be affected, right? And obviously, if top line revenue takes a plunge for our customers, well, then, that uncertainty can put a pause on orders. So I'm already seeing some customers get more aggressive, some, cancel projects altogether, and I just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of the feeling I've had for a little bit here too, kind of what I was talking about last week. It's just like the sales are frustrating. They're a little odd on that point, but we could talk about that as we get further down. I definitely feel you on that. It's probably on top of a lot of our listeners' minds.
Yep. But what about you, personal feelings of the week?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little behind. I've got more sales tasks than I've ever had. We're putting out 3 proposals this week, which is going to be a record number for us. And it's just like, I keep looking at the tasks getting created in my sales pipeline because of how much automation we've done on other things. And it's starting to rewarm these leads up and get them on my calendar. Like, things are really trickling on that. So I'm really optimistic, positive about that, but then just feeling like, holy crap, I got to just keep in front of this wave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to keep the momentum going.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm feeling. I guess we can roll right into sales and marketing. You kind of started with that, the market uncertainty. I think that's kind of a common theme that everybody that's in sales and or marketing is trying to understand, even on the, the operations or ownership level too of the cash, if you will. But yeah, what do you want to talk? I think that's a good topic to actually cover this week because it's very top of mind. It's very real for a lot of listeners.
Yeah, I guess, obviously I've been kind of out of sales. I haven't been taking any sales meetings, a couple little urgent calls here and there, but no, real demo calls. Obviously my next week is completely stacked on the recovery, especially between, interviewing job candidates and demo calls. It's going to be a kind of a hellish next week.
For sure.
I guess, where I am is I honestly I kind of just don't know what's going to happen. I know even every time we see like an election cycle, there's kind of this wave of, really waiting to see what the new administration will do, how will affect, the manufacturing economy in general. And then, there's a lot of, kind of warm leads that all go and, purchase a couple months after.
Mm-hmm.
Here, for us, I don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously all of our competitors are hurt considerably worse, which, I like everything to be a win-win, but if I'm going to hurt, I want the whole market to struggle. That's maybe a little too capitalist to me, but, and I guess the big thing is I just don't really, for us, it doesn't really hurt us too much. Like, we have some parts, like our vices are made in Taiwan or China, and, sure, we're going to be paying considerably more there. We can just raise the prices a little bit and make barely any money on them and be fine. But yeah, really the question is, for me, has been how are our customers going to be affected? How's the general supply chain going to be affected? And how does that translate, and at what speed does that translate to orders right now?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's
And you don't know, if these tariffs could disappear or get doubled, next week.
yeah, I've always found it's really hard to forecast or make a decision that's very speculative like that in
Right.
our business or industry. It's like, what are the facts that we do know? One thing that like a lot of people I've chatted with about this kind of tariff theme is if you followed Trump at all on his history of negotiation, he has what's called the big ask. So what he's done here is he threw out tariff numbers and he wanted everybody to come to the table. So he's doing his big ask. It's very kind of play by the rule book of the way he negotiates at this point is what I'm seeing. Uh, and then when they don't want to play, he just continues to ask more
Hmm.
and to get him to move to his point. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays. But then once it kind of gets after that, it comes down to how that other side of the table reacts to it. So I that's where it can get speculative at that point. So I don't know, but that's one thing that I've been watching here is I think he's gonna big ask then back down to where he wants to be. I'm assuming he wants to get to a solution sooner than later, but speculative on the last comment.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't really like speculate at this point at all, right?
No,
Because
that's not a
it's
good
just
way.
it feels like an exercise in futility. So like as like a business owner, I'm changing pretty much nothing of what I'm
I think it's
doing,
a solid strategy.
and trying to keep my head down and not get too stressed out and just cross my fingers really.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I don't know, and I have to think about it a bit. There's definitely some repricing of a couple of our products that has to happen, most of the devices, and the really I'm not even concerned about us. I'm just concerned about how our customers are going to be affected because that's
Yeah.
obviously, and even for you guys, I mean, there's like if there's a 30% tariff out of nowhere on a FANUC robot, that may make it difficult to move an MRS that was otherwise an easy sale. I don't know. Yeah.
That's very real. That's exactly what we're looking at. And then, like you said, the price increases, that's about the only thing we're looking at right now. I had a meeting with the Merlin advisors earlier this week and was discussing, what's kind of happening, what develop needs to do to make sure that, we're not negatively impacted by the changes in the economy because we have large sales cycles, we have large contracts, we have contracts that take a
Hmm.
year plus to deploy on. So there's a lot of like ripple effect that can occur there. And their feedback on it was they want me going to every 90-day price increases.
Yep.
I've never done that. We've always done every 12 months. I've done 16 months in the past when I was the market, we're fine. They're like, you need to be reevaluating every 90 days to evaluate if you need to do a price increase, but you need to be increasing every 6 months. They gave me real examples of like when they've seen, being squeezed by suppliers on this standpoint and then just basically not making any dollars or profit
Hmm.
those years. So they're like, you just need to make sure that, if you get squeezed, you don't get squeezed to the red, if you will.
Yeah. And is the goal to upcharge as much as the market will bear to outpace inflation, like, but to
No, they
or yeah,
basically definitely not to gouge. It's more or less just to,
not
uh,
charging what the market will pay isn't gouging, right? I
I
mean,
guess, but
yeah.
yeah, that's a fair comment. I think theirs was more or less just to maintain with our current pricing structure because it is working. It's what the market bears, if you will, and we're profitable at it. But just making sure we don't lose that ground is what I think they meant because we've gone through a series of other price increases because we traditionally were a very, let's say, expensive engineering company and integration company. We
Right.
didn't raise prices for a good period of time. Like I said, that 16 months, then our prices kind of got a little out of whack because of how much had changed. And then we did some course corrections on pricing and got that back in line. So now it's just making sure that we remain on that line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, we have the volatility too of like, and you might have this as well, where you've already priced out a system, And, for, cash flow purposes, we might sell an intro load that's like, say, 50 grand installed total. We have to go and, purchase $15,000 of, fifth axis and $5,000 of Pearson equipment. And we kind of do that at the last possible minute for cash flow purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're asking all these, weird questions like, and starting to see kind of upstream supply chain issues there as well. Obviously with those things being U.S. made, they're a lot less bad, but it's how in practice, in theory, that's, okay, these should be U.S. made, it shouldn't be a problem. But then in practice, they were actually using import aluminum, and now the aluminum prices have skyrocketed. So that there's all these other concerns of supplier price increases.
Yeah, there was two other points on that they had brought up based on their experience was one, knowing that we're bidding out the projects where we're going to need, say, in your case, fifth axis, our case, FANUC robots, being able to go to those suppliers and say, all right, we bid you out on these projects. And typically FANUC already tracks what project you're bidding stuff to, which works out really well. Now, how long are you going to hold those prices for? And then how can we let our customers know that that's what the hold price timeline is? So we make sure that, all parties are protected in that instance. So it's just adding a layer of communication is something that we're talking about there and how we execute that accordingly. The other one they brought up is your case. All right, maybe I just buy those vices and inventory more of them now to try and get in front of us. And I don't know, we went back and forth on that.
Right.
And in my perspective, I felt like that was a short-term reactionary solution because at the end of the day, those prices are coming. So I might have hedged my bet to a point, and then I was able to make a bigger margin on this one. But either way, I tied up that cash on a gamble. And so I don't know. It kind of comes down to if you have a bunch of liquidity, do that. If not, what you want to do.
You do that if you're Apple and you can, charter jets to fly iPhones.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have a pile of liquidity, but our size, you want to keep that cash because, like you said, the unknown of what the market has.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of where we landed. We tried to get, a couple orders through for like a new version of our GIMVAC and some other stuff. We kind of have a mixed manufacturing process right now where we'll, make the first batch generally domestically. And then we try to make everything domestically that we can. But the hard part is that, we try to create Kanban quantities of 10, 15, and, most shops domestically don't want to touch it, right? So then, I don't know, a quarter of our SKUs have some parts that are custom machined to our spec internationally. That likely is going to have to drop down considerably, given that, now if we're doubling the price of those things, I might as well just, pay the much higher per part cost and make it locally or even bring it back in-house.
That could be, you just look at that as a shelf turn, time on shelf. How many times are you turning that per year? And that can justify your associated costs. That also goes back to a couple podcasts ago of what you cut for SKUs.
Yeah. And it feels nice to have, started to reduce those part numbers, but, one thing that I was discussing with Priscilla the other day, while we were on vacation is, the guys over at, I think I complained a little bit about this too, the Airvice guys, came to our booth and, we wanted to build a relationship with them and, they basically, told us to screw off and, now they're coming out with a gripper, right? And
of course,
and at first I was a little bit angry, and then, I started talking with Priscilla, and she's like, well, how many, gripper SKUs do you have? And you're like, oh, well, we have like 27 because we got to go on the Mazak and we got to go on the Haas. We got, I started listing down all these things, and she looks at me and she's like, so why are you worried about, this one company that's making something that has this small little niche subset? And even then, the money's not in the gripper; it's in kind of all the turnkey services that surround it. And that's kind of the blessing and the curse that we have is like our broad compatibility leads us to having all these part counts, which makes the manufacturing a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because your manufacturing problem is very similar to what I battled with at Rings.
Yep.
If you bring it in house, it's standardization across machines. common tooling across machines. You got to get fixturing and vices that never come off, and you can change jobs in like 15 minutes. Like
Yep.
that's the only way we're able to make that a profitable in-house manufacturing company with prices the market would bear.
Right. Yeah, and what's tough too is, we had a good game plan, I thought, of like, okay, we're gonna, outsource in the short term domestically because we were obviously are down a machinist, and then I had kind of a mapped out game plan of, okay, here's the parts in the right order that we're gonna bring back for manufacturing 100% in house, right?
What would happen if you just leaned out and you had dedicated like 2 or 3 robo drills, DM2s or brothers?
As opposed to Haas machines, or
Well, a Haas DM2.
sure, yeah,
Like I'm just saying kind of that drill tap kind of style machine. I mean, you go with their DT, but I mean, you can get a Haas 40 taper that's a drill tap, and I'm personally a fan of those little guys.
yeah. Well, I mean, right now the goal has always been to get everything back 100% in house, right? And we're in this weird spot right now where we have 5 CNC machines and a water jet and no machinist, right? So it's like, okay, we have me and an apps engineer or two to go and do the turnkeys, but there's no human bandwidth to run the machines, to run parts.
But if you do that, you don't need a machinist. You need
Right?
an
Yeah,
operator.
yeah.
I
But
mean,
the
I
thing
get
is, I don't have the time, and our apps engineers don't have the time to build the processes and the initial CAM to bring those things back one at a time. So we still need a person there to do that.
you know, dedicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it has been the plan, but it's a long-term thing, for 300 unique part numbers. That's not going to happen overnight or over a couple of weeks.
You'd be surprised. So
Yeah.
rings, we transitioned off of suppliers overnight. We said we weren't purchasing from them again. We started buying machines. We went into out of stock or late on, or purchase and will deliver, if you will, inventory. And it was cold turkey. And we brought
Yeah.
in, it ended up being over 1,000 different unique part numbers in-house.
Right. But
Like
I mean,
it,
how many employees was the company?
employees in the company was like 20 at the time, but there was
Okay.
a
Yeah.
person of 1 in that department, me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I started programming and then hired 1 person, and
Yeah.
we were landing a machine every several months and just ramping it up.
Yeah. Yeah. If we find the right, just like a really excellent machinist who, wants to build processes, not just individual parts, I think
Yeah.
that probably can accelerate more aggressively than I'm scoping out.
I think you nailed it. You need somebody that wants to do the processes, not just the parts.
Yeah. And that hiring process, of course, is a long one.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we got somewhere on a tangent. We're down all the way further into our normal company-wide updates and
Okay.
improvements, but no, I think it was good for the sales pipeline, if you will. Basically what you're feeling on the sales side. I think that's kind of a really good echoed theme across the market. So good talk.
Well, on the tangent, can I ask you, one more kind of similar question? What does your current hiring process look like? And then, what would you want to change about it, or do you think could be better?
Yeah, our current hiring process. So Indeed posting. So create job description specific for that role. Things that we have changed, that we started putting percentages. So how much of your role is each one of these bullet points, and then we try and keep those maybe it's a bullet point with sub bullet points. We'll do for that. We then post them on Indeed. We run ads to it.
Okay.
We eventually pause the ads once we feel like we.
So even there, like, how much do you say, okay, I'm going to spend X dollars on Indeed? Like, how many applicants do you typically pause it at?
I've paused it between 60 and 300.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's been the window. Sometimes it just depends on timeline too. So that 300 that one time happened in less than a week.
Right.
The 60 sometimes took a couple weeks. So it's like, I just want to get enough candidates to actually dig through.
So are you spending like, I'm just, ballparking here, like between $1,000 and $5,000, like with Indeed to do the yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And then from there, I typically take a Sunday and I'll review every single resume. I make a top 10 and we go from there. So the top 10 get interviewed. That's a virtual filter, if you will. And then if I'm still like, some of these I'm squishy on, I'll open it back up to another 10. I'll do a virtual. I usually get to the point, try and cruise through them. Not cruise, that's the wrong way to put it.
Wait, so do you
But
do a
like
virtual with the top 10 first, or do you just go straight to real interviews?
virtual, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, I've ended interviews in under 5 minutes before.
Yeah. Yep.
Like if it's not a fit, it's not a fit for either party.
Of
And
course.
I think if you know the developed culture, we'd like to get to the point. So
Yep.
if that doesn't bode well in the interview process, it's probably you wouldn't have been a fit then anyways. But that's the process. And then we usually try and do an in-person. We have hired people straight from virtuals,
Yep.
but we'll do another round of virtual that's longer. The first one's usually just a personality, just trying to get to know the person, get to know them, and what they're like to work with, what they like to do outside of work for fun or outside of school if they're just about to graduate. And then we have another one that's more technical basis, actually. So
Yep.
it's culture then technical is the way we look at it.
Gotcha. I had a suggestion from another business owner I met up with, and I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
He told me what he does is he asks them, some question, right? And says, record a 60-second or less video answering this question and send it to me. And he uses that as a filtering mechanism. I wanted to see what your thoughts were there.
That's actually an interesting idea to do a video like that. What we have done in the past is given homework or like coding problems.
Right.
And in those instances, I actually gave like $100 gift cards to people. I was like, all right, you get, 5 hours or something max.
Mhm.
I don't want you spending more than 5 hours on this. We'll give everybody that does this $100 gift card for your time. And we went from there. I've done that before. That was for interns, which was interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because the thing with the resume thing, especially right now with the hiring for the senior machinist position is like some of the resumes aren't that great, and I'm noticing like some of the people with the best resumes are the best at a surface level when you talk to them, and then you put them you walk them over to the Haas control and you watch them interact with them, and you're just like nope.
Yeah, it's sometimes resumes aren't always
Yep.
based on looks, if you will. Yeah, so interviewing definitely helps in that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of a good way. I think the filter that I've found, rather than looking at the quality of structure of the resume, it's the length of it.
Yeah.
The 3-pagers get thrown out. I
Yeah.
won't even look at them. If you couldn't tell me what you did important in one, I will sometimes accept 2 pages. I'm not even reading your resume.
Yep.
I just feel like you can't get to the point. Just like I was saying, you're not going to fit our culture. You can't get to the point. So I guess that's a good thing. If you're listening, make sure do not submit a 2-page resume to Matt. I highly recommend it being 1 page, very nicely laid out.
Yeah. I'm definitely less strict with that, but I think as I'm maturing as a business owner, I think I'm getting more realizing, okay, this is it's building a funnel, right? The same way
Yeah.
that you would with your general business, inbound.
It costs way more to do it wrong than
Yeah.
to take the time to do it right.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I'll let
So-
you get us back on track.
No, you're fine. We're on sales. I guess I was up. I said record number of proposals this week for us in sales. Some of that's just been because of the amount of standardization we did in Q1 on our proposals. So like if we have a somewhat custom packaging and palletizing, we have so many templates that are not so many, but one giant template that then we cut and paste out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did it for the MRS where like we just did a bid on an MRS in 5 minutes, which was really cool to see that.
Yeah.
We just hadn't templated it out that far because we hadn't gotten far enough, if you will, on that. So that was just really nice. And then the rest for sales and marketing is us getting ready for Automate right now. So buttoning up details.
Mm-hmm. I actually saw a sponsored Instagram post from you guys on the MRS.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We're running some ads to one of the posts. Actually, we have a couple. We have one VFS ad and that. We're just trying to get more brand awareness, if you will.
Yeah. What are you guys spending on those roughly?
I think we spend, depending upon the post on Instagram, it's $5 or $10 a day.
Okay. Yeah.
So hardly anything, but more or less we're just trying to create a little bit more brand awareness. I'm not expecting to sell anything on Instagram.
Yeah.
I haven't in the past, really. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're not going to, especially without, a very clear purpose-driven e-commerce store.
Mhm.
But yeah, Meta has served us the best for sure out of all the paid ad options.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it for our week. I mean, for the MRS, for prepping for Automate, that product is so buttoned up at this point. The software mechanical team had like details they wanted to tune up, and it was like, all right, how much time do you want? The mechanical team wanted 16 hours. So two days to like literally spit shine this thing, I guess, at this point. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a couple little details on sheet metal that they're like, yeah, I'd
Right.
really like to redo these just so they look better for all the revs. And if somebody looks close, I'm like, all right, even if we can do 16 hours and buy that. And then software wanted 40 hours to test some more of their minor changes to the part placer algorithm.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see that that's, I mean, what, 56 hours were requested for tuning for Automate. That's nice.
Yeah, that is nice. But yeah, marketing front, sales and marketing, obviously, other than kind of planning and thinking in my head, haven't done much while I've been in Oahu over here.
Yeah. Well, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
I guess engineering and R&D is probably not much for you then either.
No, nothing.
We're gonna cruise through this one.
I know that the team back home is working on the extra load. But that's all been kind of mapped out and planned, so it's not anything unexpected. No, Michael jumps in on a random project kind of thing.
Nice. All right. Sounding like things are running smooth then for you. That's good.
Yeah.
For us, it's just we're getting further boxed in on this box erection testing. It is rather comical.
More boxes everywhere? Or are you getting rid of them now?
There's so many because now we need to run. So we want to reuse some of them for another test on the machine, but you kind of need to run them separately.
Right.
So we're saving them then hopefully in about 2 weeks here, they're all going to get used to finish some testing and then broken down. But until then, it's like, I bet we have like 1,000 square feet of boxes up there.
Yeah.
And they're all like 8 feet tall.
Yeah. Do you have to like keep them until to like prove that they were, erected, or is it
We
just
track it. We track
okay.
it, take pictures, log the data. What's cool is we have such a good data team and Power BI hooked up to every machine that now we can use our data dashboards that we build for our customers logging to now track our testing data. Which
you just need to like rent a trash compactor and have another MRS that picks up the boxes.
That's actually a really good idea. I was going to have my retired father come in and break them down because he's looking for things to do.
Yeah.
I feel bad asking him to do it, but he's like, yeah, I'd do anything. So like, all right,
we got these boxes over here.
Yeah, whatever. He's like, I can make one hell of a bonfire, probably brush fire.
Yeah.
Other is we're just running that nut runner that we have. There's been minor changes happening to that. It's one of those things where just tuning things. So we had like a pin that has to cycle up. I was telling you that where it just didn't have quite enough force. They revved that. Some fit and function on a few details there. So hopefully fat here is happening very soon. I don't see why not.
What fat is again?
Factory acceptance testing. So that's where we invite customers here. They run their product right in front of us.
I've heard SAT is SAT and fat are just the same thing.
Yeah, so we do site acceptance testing. So we do fat here. So before we disassemble your machine, put it on a pallet and ship it to you, we want sign off that it was functioning here.
Yep.
Because your contract only has so many days of install at your facility. And so if there's changes there, it's going to cost them a lot more money. So we want to make sure that the changes are happening on our site. Because it's never good if stuff's happening. Like, oh, we wish this would have been done this way. It's like, that could have been done for $200 at our facility, and now it's going to cost $2,000
every time. Yeah, every time something goes wrong on site.
So we've found that works pretty well. But that's pretty much it. Life cycle testing on 3 machines. It's happening on the floor this week.
That nut runner machine looks. I love the look of the bare aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah. It makes for very, very pretty product photos, but I also want to see like before and after, 4 years of use.
Oh, it's going to be disgusting.
Yeah.
Their facility will have some very heavy use, but
yeah.
What's interesting is we have to be competitive on these bids, and it's amazing spending $4,000 on anodizing. If we anodize all the parts on that, it stacks up in a hurry. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and our customers don't care. They'd rather save the $4,000.
Yeah. Yeah. The powder coat's a good alternative. You got to bring it in-house and it's messy. That's what we
Yep.
did. But $4,000 for anodize? You got to find a new anodizer.
I'm
That's
just
what,
throwing out a
okay.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in LA, we are blessed with some amazing, very, very cost-effective anodizers. I mean, we will send just, I don't know, 40 to 80, like relatively large parts, just, in a UPS box, well packed to our anodizer. Then they charge us like, MOQ, like $300 plus shipping and like perfectly
Holy,
anodize all of it. And
that
we're just
is,
like, yeah,
that is actually rather amazing because every single, like ours have, I think, minimum $500 surcharges now. So if your job
yeah.
is less than 500, you're paying 500, which I don't disagree with that. So then you're trying to lot stuff together, but yeah.
I get how it is with that one-off business. When we were a job shop, we kept, our MRQ was 1,000, then 1,500, then 3,000, then 5,000. Like it's just hard when you're building one-offs to make it work. But yeah, then on the other end of it, as a business owner, like, you know, you're not gonna go send out 2 parts to get anode.
Yeah. So I don't know. We just leave a
Yeah,
lot of it bare. It works. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't hurt the function at all. They can Scotch Brite it if they want it to not be so shiny.
yeah, yeah.
That's it for engineering and R&D for me. The other one was company-wide updates and improvements is next on the list.
Well, why don't you start there? Because I haven't been updating much from Honolulu here.
All right. For us, it's really small things like we've been talking about. It's the Fastenal cabinets, getting the bolts loaded in it now that we have it, getting those labeled. So it's just easier to find stuff. We are going to be Kanbaning bolts then in the back of those.
Mhm.
And then we're going to make it so one drawer is covering, a series of different things. So you can just find stuff a lot quicker.
Yeah. How many things are you Kanbaning?
TBD.
Yeah.
However many we need.
Yeah. I will tell you, and just give a shout out to the Art of Cards guys. We spent so much time trying to build our own Kanban system, and such a tremendous waste of money, and they just did it better.
So what ours is if we find out that we need to order something and it was late, we put a note card there right now,
Mhm.
and we put it at what that minimum should be. So we just have note cards sitting in the shop,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
that's the way we're going about it. And we're just kind of seeing where this goes. And yeah, Art of Cards definitely on the list, but we just don't want to over deploy something.
Oh, I'm with
'Cause-
you. Yeah, no,
so
I was kind of like, only do it if you need 400 of the cards, right? Or 200
we're
of the
definitely
cards.
not there yet.
Yeah.
So we're more or less just handwriting them right now. We're going to see where this goes over probably the next 6-12 months. And then, yeah, we'll be looking at an actual system.
Yeah, well, yeah, you guys are deploying slowly. So, I would be surprised if you didn't have 400 things that you wanted to Kanban, right? Of like, depending how far you go, like, oh, dry erase marker, Sharpies,
Oh
like
yeah,
toilet
I
paper.
see what you're
Yeah,
saying. The first part of that is making sure we have the dedicated space for it, and that's what
yeah,
we're going through right now. Like we cleaned, so the other one was we went through the lev rack and a bunch of our shelves in our inventory area. So we added 30% more shelves to our lev rack, so we went down to smaller clear bins,
hmm,
and then we threw away like 20% of what we had in storage.
yep, makes sense.
And then from there now we have more space and it's visible is kind of that step. And this stuff has dedicated spaces now. So we're moving, which is really nice. So we just need
Yep.
to kind of continue that. The electrical department did that. CNC machining's been doing that. We just are in the process of doing it in the mechanical department. And so it's just trickling through right now. I'd say give it another 3 to 6 weeks and we'll probably be seeing more visibility on what we're going to need for Kanban
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah, but I like how you're doing it a lot better than how we did it. We try to deploy all in with our own system, and you also seem to not have the grand delusions I had that I could build the system and not pay any recurring costs.
I've tried that enough times on other things,
Yeah,
that home brewing you always think it's so simple. And then you start doing it and you realize why it costs so much to have somebody
Yeah.
just sell you the solution.
yeah,
And having done that in the past and wasted company resources on the wrong initiatives, it's more or less just trying to stay disciplined on where the efficiencies and dollars are coming from.
yeah. There's a lot of places that are just a couple years ahead of me.
Yeah. So, I guess, what was that? There's,
I said that there's quite a few places where you've, experience has led you not to make my mistakes because you made them, 3-4 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's very real. It's you
yeah.
pay in dollars, pain or points is the line or
Hmm.
whatever. So yeah, that's part of it. We learned the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you have the team doing any company wide improvements? I mean, they're operating without Michael, so there must be
Hmm.
some improvements happening to make that happen. Because I'm based on when we started talking in the podcast, I think that it's been a solid progression to get you there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. The business has changed a lot. We like fired all of our manufacturing clients first, right? And I use fired in the most gracious way possible. We finished every commitment that we had made, and we stopped accepting new work first from the smallest clients, and then climbing upwards. And then we also did that with our consulting clients, other than kind of the largest two, or the two that we had long-term commitments towards. Um, that is one of the places I'm a little bit uneasy with, is the economic uncertainty may, just those clients may basically fire themselves, in that they just literally cannot, consulting is the first variable cost that you cut, right?
Do you,
So
do you still have some T&M work or consulting work? Like what percentage is that?
25, 30, right? But,
So
but
from my experience there, Michael, I would keep those customers if
so, well,
like
yeah, I guess that's one of the places I'm uneasy, is I want to keep those customers.
okay.
But the economic uncertainty right now means that very likely they might go on pause on their own accord for no fault of our own, right?
Yeah,
And
but talk to them why that is. I mean, there's sometimes if you're going to be slow anyways, giving them terms and saying, all
mhm,
right, I want to be paid on X to get you through this, but I'll be willing to leverage my engineers. You can use your line of credit for stuff like that, but knowing you're going to get paid in the future, it's better than having the idle time and not leveraging it unless you have internal initiatives that you want to be doing. There's ways around that. You can give them even a price break for a short period of time,
mhm,
but you don't want to always set the expectations that, hey,
yeah.
I might
Well,
pull this work. I want a lower price. You don't want to get put in that position either.
yeah. I mean, one of them is a very, very volatile industry, right? And that industry kind of booms and busts. They're just kind of in between, like, fundraising rounds. So there's that's its own question, right? If they just literally don't have operating capital, then that's what happens with startups. They die.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it. Okay, that was
yeah,
actually going to be one of my other questions because I
yeah,
know exactly what my Merlin advisors would say is what's the stability of these businesses if you're
hmm
going to leverage your line or do these things to just make sure that you're demising the available
they're
time.
T&M, but they're retainer based, is what I'll say.
Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah, then I wouldn't do what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah, if knowing those,
yeah,
I'm thinking of like some of my big clients that are like, there's just times where, hey, we're not approved for XYZ. We know approval's coming and I've seen approval happen. It's like, yeah, I'll start
hmm
doing your work on that risk and I'll invoice you once you get approval. I've
yeah,
had that happen.
yeah, and we're getting that all the time now too. I mean, we're doing more and more like publicly traded companies, companies that for security concerns we got to use Microsoft Teams with .gov or whatever.
Hmm.
As opposed to the traditional Google Meet, log in through their little portal. I don't worry about those ones, but it is a little bit of a disruption to our current, I don't product mix, right, of where our revenue is coming from. And the
Yeah.
automation business is growing fast enough that we're more than capable of doing it. But it's change, and not necessarily welcome change, maybe kind of forced change, right?
Yeah. I'm just speaking from the experience of having automation side of the business grow so fast compared to my T&M
Hmm.
and then the dynamics of cash changing so much with that shift.
Right.
Uh, it's just a different management of cash flow. And so ours happened like almost overnight transition. And so the pain of learning that was very real. So that'd be the one thing. I
Yeah.
don't know what your your plans are if you get squeezed on those points. Thankfully, we have things that we put in place and we're able to utilize. But in a position if you don't have backup plans or that cash that you had saved for years sitting
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
That
yeah.
can be difficult.
There's a reason we're, refining our debt is like the business is profitable, but, with the transition to automation, the change in the cash flow characteristics, the, even as we're growing, the cash flow is kind of the problem. And so
Yeah, that's
that's
every
something
small business.
that hopefully is, a week away from being just totally resolved.
Okay, cool.
But I think I'm the least worried about that I've been, but that has been probably the number one challenge for the last quarter for me.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to thank you on the small business, not the flight plan, how to grow your small business,
Oh yeah,
a flight plan. And they make it very confusing because it's like, smallbusinessflightplan.com or something.
yeah. Because I've gone. You're right. That's what I've gone to on the website is the flightplan.com portion of it. But yeah, sorry to all the listeners yet again that I butchered the name of that book. You think I would remember that if I read it this many times? So you probably shouldn't trust anything I say. Just kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you kind of do everything other than, split your everything into 7 bank accounts for cash flow management?
There's only portions of the book we've deployed. So we started, whether it been June or July, we started this book. One was just communication. Our team had grown a lot. Communication had degraded just because of the sheer number of people. And so trying to improve that was really the number one focus on it. So the meeting structures, the way we went around that, we already had some things in place, like doing team member reviews. We do quarterly reviews with every single team member anyways.
Yep.
So that's been positive on that. As far as like the cash bank accounts, I haven't gone to the extent that he has because it's like I have bank accounts for real estate business. I have bank accounts for develops, checking, savings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just like, if you look at my bank account list, it's like, it just gets so annoying to try and move the cash at the level he's saying for how small we are.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I think as we get bigger, I think some of those things make more sense, but just not yet for us.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Anything else from the book that stood out?
I read it like a week and a half ago and then, got kind of into wedding mode. So I gotta go read it again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt about it. It took several times. I think the way that I like is how it leads into it is we have to professionalize our business.
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's a really good story at the beginning. And I think that's what that initial story is what really hooked me. It's like, yeah, we really just need to professionalize some things.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's definitely been a theme of the last year for us.
For sure. On those topics, you had talked about you did Pro Shop at one point. Did you go ISO with that?
Well, we actually stopped using Pro Shop, and
Okay.
And I will say, Paul's an awesome guy. The product was in a very different place, and I don't even think we knew what we needed because
Okay.
we were half between, being a job shop and being a kind of engineering, contractor.
Mhm.
What I would say is that if you are a straight machine shop, I think that's a very easy all-in solution that does exactly what you need. I would be skeptical to recommend it to you, Matt, as doing as kind of a general ERP. You might be able to
That's
use it
not
for, but maybe for just ISO. But there's definitely other products I think that do that.
So we're I guess I should describe the scenario a little bit more. We have a lot of idle machine time because we have the
Yep.
surge needs. So over the years we've built relationships and tried getting more into just higher volume production runs of plate machining. So
Mhm.
unattended, long spindle hour plate machine parts, not just you need 4 holes punched in them. It's
Right.
micro machining, fin parts. If you're talking anodes and cathodes for hydrogen electric market, if you're talking aerospace parts that are giant heat sinks, those are the
Mhm.
parts that I'm talking about. So we've been doing work in that space, and now we've had some opportunities come up where they want us to have ISO 9001 AS certification, and then we get access to a larger volume of parts and some very unique parts that really stand out to me. Some pieces that I've been chasing for like, let's say 6 years.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the most cost-effective way to deploy that without losing focus of the automation side of the business. But one of our initiatives, like we were talking about earlier, is we're very heavy on the automation, and we have underutilized CNC machines. And I want to make sure that we have other revenue generating standpoints that are a higher turn rate. That's why we have the product, something that, you know, has a different turn rate on revenue. T&M engineering has a different turn rate. CNC machining, PCB assembly, they all have different turn rates. And so that's why we're kind of like, all right, this opportunity is too good to say no to. So figuring out a way to do it efficiently without losing focus.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So that's where it's like, do we just buy ProShop and deploy?
I would say the first thing about ISO, at least from what I've observed, because we've worked with a lot of ISO shops as, both vendors and customers. We've seen amazing ISO shops, and we've seen terribly run ISO shops where we're like, how do you even have this cert? The first thing I always kind of, remind myself and other people is like, the cert itself really doesn't mean anything. But
that's exactly the theme here. Is it's like it's going to leverage the processes that we've been building for years, but it's the other. I guess I cut you off on that. I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
I'll say the other thought is to do a prototype run of it, if you will, of going ISO and learning on the processes in one department before we deploy it across all. So machine design, software department, electrical department, because then that's really expensive. I was like, how do we do a pilot run, if you will, and just machining was the other thought we had here. It's like looking at the opportunity further.
Yeah. To me, ISO is mostly a thing that is a litmus test more than anything else of, do you have a not terribly run business? Do you have a guy who can focus on it for 6 months? And do you have $30,000 to $40,000? If you have those three things, you can get ISO.
No, that's
it's
a pay to play game is the way I view it.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. We're just trying to figure out a way, because it's like the other thing is we don't want to just do something to check the box that doesn't bode well with me for the long-term health of the business. And with everything being long-term focused, it's like, what's the right way to get a test is probably the way to lean that scope out.
I guess my perspective on it is like, I think that you have a well-run business. You probably, are better run than a large number of small ISO shops. And
interesting.
And to me, at least, my perspective is it really is just a check the box item. So if you need it to win the work, find one of these companies that, helps you do that, and then move on, because, you can prototype run it, but it really is one of those things, like, until you totally check the box, because it's really a box to check, it's like filing your taxes when you have zero due. You still have to do it. It's a check the box item.
Yeah, I just don't like that approach to it, because even though I view ISO and AS like that's what a lot of people do, I just ethically, I really struggle to just like, what's the cheapest way I can get ISO and what's the fastest way I can get it to just get this done? Like, I don't know. That just, at that point, I'd rather just not get the work if I've degraded my processes to that.
Well, okay. My perspective is like, I can understand feeling like that if you weren't a well-run shop and you were just trying to find the cheapest path, right? But I guess my perspective for you is that, it's a box you need to check. You have a well-run shop. You have processes and SOPs already. So, to me, finding the cheapest, easiest path for you is not, something unethical or lazy. It's just the most efficient, right? If you were the kind of shady shop, or, there's lots of shops that'll like borrow off of other shops, ISOs or whatever, that's a different story.
I didn't even know that was a thing. That's bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's my perspective, is that, take the cheap and easy route, because the certificate means nothing. And at the end of the day, you still need to be a well-run business, which you'll do. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'll think about that one.
You'll still, we talk, and then both of us make up our minds, sometimes one way, sometimes the other.
That's the goal of it. I like it when you disagree with me, probably just as much as when you agree with me, Michael, because that's one of the reasons I like the podcast with you. We both have our opinions, and we stick to them.
Yeah.
So I guess I hope you can help with the next one.
Okay.
What have you been Googling this week?
What have I been Googling? Why don't you start?
Is
I,
this safe for podcast? Maybe would probably be the better way.
oh yeah, it's all safe for podcast. I'm just trying to. I guess I just haven't been on Google this week that much. I mean, we've
That's
been.
good.
I guess we were Googling activities.
Yeah.
And we went like to this like adventure climb park that was like
That
up,
sounds like a blast.
40 feet in the air, and I went ATVing, which was awesome.
Okay.
It was like no power sliding, no drifting, and that's all we did.
Oh,
Um,
that sounds awesome.
so just a little bit of Honolulu stuff, and then trying to send emails, keep our customers happy as much as I can.
hmm
And what about you?
I've been trying to figure out how to make like I said, I've been feeling a little behind on the sales. It's all right. How do I automate more of this or build more SOPs in the sales side? So there's 4 things that I've been looking at. One was your recommendation from last week was the HubSpot quoting and invoicing directly from there versus going into QuickBooks, sending it out that way, having it all within one ecosystem. Looking at doing that. There's a couple things I want to do before that, I believe, but I think that'll be coming here before end of year. The second one is PandaDoc. Have you ever seen that or heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
So it's a way to take like our MRS and our machine proposals get quite complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's figuring out how to take those standard ones that we have and drop them into PandaDoc to make them just look really badass. So they don't look like they came in a Word document.
Okay.
And I'm kind of excited about that because it's just like another level up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think probably doing the coding and invoicing should come before that because that's a shiny, if you will, the PandaDoc is. The 2 that I'm actually probably going to be doing here sooner than later is paying for ChatGPT or actually getting an algorithm or a AI algorithm that I can start building templates and tools in because the amount that I'm using it at this point is like, I would say 20% of my day is within some AI.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, I need something layered on top of Fixer that I can do some other things with that I want. And then the other one is Link IQ, being able to text from within HubSpot. So use my phone number. Like I said, I love the calls. And now the other one is I've got so many customers that are now texting me that it's getting ridiculous. Like I feel like I'm sitting here at work and I'm like, guys are just thinking that all I'm doing is texting my buddies. And it's like, oh my gosh, I need to somehow get this on the keyboard because this is not efficient.
Right. Yeah, that's what I miss about Mac. That's like the only thing was being able to check stuff out of the. But that's one thing. 2 things that I think are relevant there. The big thing about HubSpot obviously is that you can track email opens, right? I mean that's like the first layer. The big reason we moved quoting and invoicing over to HubSpot is now we're also tracking view time, link clicks. Did they click on the pay now button on the invoice and then not pay for it? We can see all of those things directly, and there's no second thing to go into. There's no integration with QuickBooks or whatever. It just works.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool on that. And it looks like there might be a way to do something similar with PandaDoc. I just have to dig further into it so I can potentially use more of HubSpot. It's just been, I was more or less looking at like surface level. What other things and which one's going to have the highest ROI for me? And I'm going to go after that one first and then just work down the list.
Yeah. And then like with, Link IQ or, HubSpot, like, are you recording like inbound or outgoing calls from HubSpot?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously you want that little recording message if it's required in your state, but
yeah, so it complies with the states. So it doesn't record when it's one that doesn't have whatever. That's just the way we have it set up.
Yeah. But the nice thing is that you can take those transcripts, and this is kind of what we've been doing on all of our recorded calls, transcripts and text messages. We just have them in a database with the idea that at some point we're going to take these when AI tools get better and build kind of an AI. There's like phone answering bots already. We haven't ventured into that route yet, but when the day comes, we'll have all of the data to input into it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Michael.
Yeah, it was Priscilla's. It wasn't mine.
All right. Well,
she's the AI one.
Nice. Okay. Anything else that you want to chat on? I think the next one is something personal. I should
Well,
actually check.
we had listener questions.
You had one too?
I had a couple.
Okay, I'll let
But
you go since we used one for mine. I don't know if I had any more come in today.
okay. Let me see here. I realize I shouldn't do this in stories because the responses, like, I have to go through and look for them.
Yeah, you
One of
have to look
them,
at your history. I had to do that
uh,
today too.
one of them was favorite types of work holding. What do you use on your CNC machines? What do you like and dislike about different kinds of work holding? I can let you answer that first.
I think I might be a little biased on that answer. It would be our own ecosystem, the
Yeah,
vacuum fixture system, because it literally lives on our table. And part of that goes back to
yeah,
when I was at Rings, it was like, how do I reduce my turnover on jobs? There it was having vices for develop. Since we're a plate machining shop, we needed something that vice could go on top of quickly and something that could hold plates very flat, very efficiently.
yeah. I think I'm even more biased than you. Obviously we love the gimbal auto vices, the air vices. The we sell for Pearson, for Orange, and for Fifth Axis.
Yeah, you're right. That's tough. You
Yeah.
can't really say which one of those you like more.
Well, I love them all, and they're all
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, exactly.
What I
Just
will
like,
say is like putting a rock lock or any 96 millimeter 0 point as the base layer on your table makes a ton of sense. And is just something really awesome. I'm seeing more of the industry adapt. Like the Pearson Max 4 chucks, they all have 96 millimeter pull studs on the bottom, which are super, super nice. So they just pop on. So we get our layer of our rock lock and then our Max 4 on top. And then, for us, we'll put a pallet and then our auto vise on there. And then, then we can use gripper loading. We can use the intro load. We can do, random setups with fixtures on the 96 millimeter 0 point. That's kind of what my favorite thing about, or my favorite work holding configuration is. And this, I guess, would be a random recommendation for you guys, Matt. Pearson, obviously, they're their own, 0 point company, but
mhm.
they're putting the 96 millimeter pull studs on the bottom. And I think that's just a smart move wherever you can. I was just putting that pattern in. It's pretty non-invasive. And, whoever has a fifth axis or a Lang plate now can just pop on your thing on top of it.
That's actually, yeah, that is clever. 'Cause that doesn't take much effort.
No, it's like a little counter bore and an M10 thread. There's
How deep is that? So
so
how much plate do you need?
um it depends how long you make the stud, right? So like even on some of ours, we have to use like the low profile studs. And we just put the pattern in all of our modules, our automation modules. And sometimes we get a complaint, even though we have a little warning in there, like you have to use the shorter stud. Here's a McMaster part number. I don't know, 3/8 of an inch is probably the minimum.
Okay.
Um,
I was curious
yeah,
because our bottom subplate to our VFS system is, yeah, that'd be fine. We could make
yeah.
that.
Um,
That's a good idea though.
1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch is probably ideal, right?
Yeah.
But for us too, it's just kind of free. Like we're already machining that bottom side, and then occasionally we'll put in like a shrunk Vero S or whatever other 0 point into our
Mhm.
modules. But the I really love that system as the base layer, but a lot of the time you need something on top. You need a vise or a vacuum system, and
Mhm.
there you go.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've got our biased answers out of the way, there's got to be another question that we can answer here to get
Um,
some more value.
I lost the other one. I'm going to be honest.
Okay, you
Um,
did.
what was yours?
This one came in last week. It's actually from one of our team members. It's a pretty darn good one. What was the hardest part of transitioning to team members having leadership responsibilities? I guess I could read the exact question, but that's basically what it came down to. What was hard for us as we transitioned to our team members having leadership where we once had it?
You want me to start?
Yeah, I'll have you start. I'm still kind of like, that's a really good question.
Well, the hardest part is that I've just messed it up massively before. I've hired people from outside that I thought could handle the role that couldn't, or made it look like they could and really weren't leading the team. I've kind of promoted people from within at points to the point of failure, which is also not a great idea. And I think kind of as I tried to pulled back the business, especially after we had that one client kind of go belly up. Really the approach became that we had to shrink a bit, and I pulled back a lot of these responsibilities, and then kind of promoted from within to try to play to people's strengths. But yeah, I guess the answer is like this isn't something I'm good at yet, and I'm doing it well where I can. But this is a place I've got to learn. Like I think that's the biggest answer for me is that I just haven't succeeded to the level I would want to there.
Yeah. I'm actually going to probably answer this one with some feedback that this team member gave me. I think that's
Okay.
going to be a
Yeah.
really good one. Something that I had started just giving responsibilities to team members and just seeing how things would go.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is something that I was wondering is like, why aren't team members taking more advantage of these opportunities?
Yep.
And this, the team member that put the question in, he's made something clear to me at the beginning of this year is we did something different. I gave very specific budgets to departments and budgets to people that were leading things. And he's like, Matt, you just gave me the roadmap. Now I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was really interesting how liberating actually giving a more defined box was. And so
Yeah.
like, I think
That
probably
makes sense.
something hard for me there is like probably just not clearly defining what, the opportunity that I was hoping they would take.
Right.
And now that I've started defining it more, I'm seeing people take them more, that was probably the hard thing for me. And that was just something I just failed to communicate on.
Yeah. That's I feel you on that one.
So yeah, either way, I don't think it was anything negative from it. It was just like,
Right.
I think stuff could have been accelerated faster had I defined the expectations better sooner.
Yeah. And that's been I think a big struggle for me with that question is that, I've literally basically upended the entire status quo of the business, turned it into a totally different business, created so much chaos in doing so. Really only now am I at the point where we really solidly have the main thing that we're doing, and that is the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
To where I can even really begin to create those roadmaps and, start to promote people, to really play to their strengths. And yeah, I think I'm just getting to the point of really being in a place that I'm consistently happy where the business is and what it's doing. So it's I guess ask us again in a year.
Yeah. I guess further on that topic of the small business flight plan that we talked about, the something that he talks about in your all team meeting is the priorities.
Yep.
So making sure to stick to those priorities. Something that I know we made a mistake on that we just talked about as a team because we didn't hit all of our priorities for Q1.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, all right, why is this? We come to look at it and we find out we had one team member that was very impactful on 2 of the top 2 priorities.
Right.
And so it was like, we spread that person too thin on that. And he was split between which was the real priority. And then we didn't hit either one of those.
Gotcha.
Granted, we're going to hit them all very soon here, but it was like the objective was to hit them by April 1st. So, but that was a learning experience that we talked about as a team. And, we're not going to do that again. But the other thing is the OKR book that we talked about is doing the objectives. So it's taking those company priorities and then breaking down the team member objectives. It's really just getting the team to focus on what, we need to say no to is probably it, and really drive in is something else that we've seen. It's interesting how, defining the box further down of what we were aiming to do is making us faster. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's I think we're in probably the most fun time of the business. Probably that 5 to 20 people is where you really feel the growth the most, and don't have any of the weird different bureaucratic problems you have on the other side of that.
Yeah, we'll see. I've never grown a team past 20 people, so I'll see you on the other side.
Hopefully I'll be there with you.
Oh, you will be.
Yep.
You said Oahu is where you're at?
Yeah, we're in like kind of urban Honolulu right now.
Okay.
And we're going to one of these like dolphin encounter things.
Okay.
That's okay. They raised them there. That's what I was told. So the poor dolphins never knew the taste of freedom.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
little pat the dolphin on the head. That's next up.
That should be fun. You get a bunch of macadamia nuts while you're there then?
Oh man, we don't buy those anymore. They're too dangerous.
What
The
is
chocolate
that?
covered ones, or just the
Oh,
regular ones?
but they're grown in Hawaii.
Yeah, they are, but they're so delicious. We'll like eat the whole box and then feel
That's what's
terrible
awesome
about ourselves.
about 'em.
Oh man,
I love macadamia nuts.
yeah, they are really good.
Yeah, they're like the highest fat content thing you can eat though, like the planet.
Well, I think the chocolate surrounding them is worse.
Okay. Yeah, that could be. It's
Cool.
dark chocolate.
Yeah. All right.
All
Should-
right.
Let's wrap there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michael.
Oh wait. Reminder: rate and review.
Oh, yeah. So what do we need to say here?
All right, I'll do this one, I guess. If
All
you
right.
guys can, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, just give us a 5-star rating, or worse, if you didn't think we did a good job. A rate and review, share it with your friends. We just want to get the word out about the podcast, try to grow our listener base a little bit.
Thank you so much for listening to Matt and I's conversation this week on the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. If you like the podcast, please share it with a friend or give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week to continue sharing our respective journeys in life, business, and industrial automation. Thanks so much.